Pat.
We are
live. Here we go. We are here after Villanova's 64-56 win over Seton Hall. It is an energy exchange. I'm Matt Janus of the Holy Nova podcast. I am joined by the hosts of Pirate Vibes. We've got Bryan Webster. We've got Tim Best. We've got Patrick Madden, who made it down to the Prudential Center today and is trying to battle traffic and make it his way out of the parking lot before it closes on him. So he is a true champion for being here in the conversation with us. Guys, one of us is happy. I know maybe the rest of you not quite as happy. Let's talk about how this unfolds. I think we have to start with the lead being, we watched Cade Lewis take a big next step in his maturation process tonight. Everybody kind of wondering what the freshman ceiling was coming into the year. He was the X factor for what Villanova could be. We saw it in bursts leading up to this game. We saw it for pretty much 40 minutes tonight. He was incredible. Talk about a maestro who kind of ruined your guys' Festivus.
Yeah, I mean, watching him live, you could just tell he's got a gear. He was the most talented player on the court. No slight to guys like Clark and guys like Lindsay and guys like, anybody else on either uniform. But you could tell that guy was at another level tonight. And he probably was hearing people chirping about how good Bud Clark and like that, all that, but we have Bud Clark and you don't. Clark, of course, being a Philadelphia guy. So, he probably heard a lot about Clark going into this game, and he made it his mission to send the message that, I play basketball too.
By the way, Matt, I had to say, great Festivus reference, great Seinfeld reference. I'm a big fan, so I'm glad I found one and the same with you. But yeah, Lewis was just exceptional. He was just one of several standouts from this Villanova side. I'll gladly tip the cap to them. They earned this win, and Lewis was the big focal point in that. It seemed like he was doing everything right, from disrupting Clark to creating for others and creating for himself. Yeah, I was really impressed with his play. And I think if he doesn't play at that level, it's a lot more difficult to come by for Villanova to win this game. But yeah, everyone needed a signature. Every freshman needs a signature game like that to really cement their status. And Lewis, this was definitely his night. And Aiden, I think I saw the same comment you did, Matt.
David White chiming in, my co-host, Caden Lewis, winning the feats of strength tonight in our live chat.
Yeah, good call there, Dave White. We miss you.
Yeah, he's feeling under the weather. He's gonna try to make his way in, but he caught a stomach bug right before Christmas. So not good times for him. Not good times for Seton Hall. Let's talk about you guys mentioned Clark and the foul trouble he got into. Obviously, John Fana was all over that in the first half. It was referenced many, many times in those opening 20 minutes. How big an impact did you think that made on Seton Hall in terms of? I know they struggled when he returned in the second half, but they never seemed to find a rhythm, guys.
on offense. We saw a zone defense, which seems to be the secret to play Seton Hall this year. And when Clark goes 1 for 11 from the field, when you're point guard and you don't really have to concern yourself until he gets into the paint, it makes it a lot easier. The offense felt stale, and Tim, I'm not trying to blow you up here, but in our group chat, he said, I'm having PTSD right now over last year. And that's what the offense seemed like. It seemed very stale. And with Clark not being able to get to that mid-range where he's hitting them, which he has all year, it just 56 points is not going to win you many games in the Big East or in the NCAA. So I think that's the biggest takeaway here.
And so I watched what Willard had to say post-game, being interviewed by Fanta and Tariq Turner. And I give credit where credit's due with Willard. Like, he had a great game plan coming to this. He explained that what really makes Seton Hall's offense click is when Bud creates for others. So Willard's strategy, he essentially said, was we'll let Bud kill us with twos, and then we'll just answer with the three ball on the other end, because three's more than two. And, that's genius as far as I'm being concerned. And that's why Kevin had the success that he did while he was at Seton Hall. He was a master strategizer, and he earned the nickname from John Rossi of the chiropractor, being able to make great adjustments. And obviously, he continued that trend at Maryland and now at Villanova. But that strategy just worked really, really well, and it just helped a lot that they were able to get him in early foul trouble to get Seton Hall's offense in an even worse rhythm, and that allowed Villanova to get out to an early lead. Seton Hall, they got down to 4 at the break, but yeah, that big 16-0 run, I think it was, that essentially buried Seton Hall's chances right then and there. And even with that great run that Seton Hall went on to cut it down to 13, we won't count what happened in garbage time, but that run that got down to 13, I don't even think it would have mattered getting it down that low. Even if they got down to 10 at that point, that 16-0 run was a backbreaker for the Hall.
And so it's 31-27 at the half. Seton Hall scores the first bucket of the second half. They have Clark back. You're thinking maybe this could be a different game in the second half because it felt like Villanova should have had a much bigger lead than they did at intermission. And you mentioned the 16-0 run. It lasted 6 minutes, 6 seconds of game time. Went back and double-checked in real time. It was 15 minutes. Seton Hall went without a point. They went from 9:11 until 9:26 without scoring. Patrick, you were there. I'd have to imagine that took the absolute collective life out of the Rock. It just felt like the atmosphere, which was so keyed up, they were still ready to yell at the officials from that point forward. But in terms of bringing the juice for the team, it kind of felt like the air went out of the balloon during that run.
Yeah, part of the problem is that you have all these people going to get drinks and food at halftime. And Tim has talked a lot about what he calls the first war out of the half. The first time to the first TV timeout. And, you get the fans half the seats are empty because people are running out and doing things at halftime. And that's when Villanova, put the dagger into this game. And just, it's funny. I saw a Villanova fan make a tweet that they love the adjustments that Willard made at halftime. And we saw that time after time at Seton Hall. He just basically what he did was he dared Clark to draw a third foul, and Clark played a little bit tentatively on defense, and that's when Lewis got some openings and Lindsay hit a couple of threes. I mean, Bryce Lindsay doesn't need a lot of space. I mean, when he's on, you can do the best closeout you can on Lindsay, and Lindsay might still knock it down on you. So they just did that 4 or 5 times early in the second half, and that's when they made that lead from 2 or 4 all the way into the 14-15 range, and that was basically lights out at that point.
It's kind of funny. Space is really the key word for Villanova. When they space the floor and they move without the basketball, all of a sudden with the driving lanes that are opened up, and we talked about Caden Lewis's ability to just will his way into the lane, that's when Villanova goes to that next level because all of a sudden the threes become open looks, and even if you're not making them, you're getting offensive rebounds. But I thought what was especially impressive during that 16-0 run was the way that Lewis facilitated everything. The 7-0 run that forced the initial Seton Hall timeout, Lewis knocks down a 3. He drives and scores at the bucket. He drives, breaks down the defense, misses the layup, but Hodge is there to clean it up. That's a 7-0 run. That's a timeout. They come out of the timeout. Nova gets a stop. They come right back down. Lewis again gets himself right into the lane, misses at the rim again, but Brennan cleans it up this time. Then finally you had a slip to the basket as Lindsay took over and found Brennan as they kind of overplayed on Lewis, determined to take him away. And all of a sudden they just had a complete breakdown defensively. Brennan left uncontested. Lindsay finds him for the dunk. The one possession during the run, I thought Seton Hall did a really good job. They locked Villanova down, and this was the point where you kind of realized it wasn't the Pirates' night. Yet Tyler Perkins just sort of dribbling aimlessly around the perimeter, shot clock winding down, figures better hoist, knocks it down. And at that point, you kind of knew it was curtains. They get the miss, the leak out, the Lewis dunk, and that was kind of the punctuation mark on that. It was a 15-minute stretch of real time without a point. And you also then add in, they scored 2 coming out of intermission, but there was halftime put in there as well. Seton Hall didn't score the final 90 seconds of the first half. They went over a 25-minute span where they scored 2 points. I know halftime's mixed in there, but that's a long time to try to ask your crowd to be patient and just kind of wait through it. And that sort of summed up the night. Lewis's ability to get to the.
I remember just to get before you leave that. I remember a game Seton Hall played with St. John's 2 years ago, where Seton Hall scored the last 14 points of the first half, and then the first 14 points of the second half, and St. John's went 45 minutes without scoring a point. So we've seen this script before. Unfortunately, it was the other way around. But again, that just takes the air out of the balloon for that crowd, which was really, that crowd, that was probably the fewest Villanova fans I've seen at a Seton Hall Villanova game. Particularly even years when Villanova was bad, Villanova fans would show up at Seton Hall games. This seemed to be closer to a 90-10 crowd tonight, and the 90 did not make their presence felt basically after halftime.
Well, we did talk about it. It was kind of the perfect storm. 2 days before Christmas, so it's kind of hard to get to a road game if you're a Villanova fan. And then on top of that, the fact that, the Seton Hall fans were geared up and ready to go for this one and did a great job. They sold out that lower bowl. And I always thought that this was going to be a game, that this was going to be a pure Seton Hall crowd and a true road atmosphere. And now this is 2 straight road atmospheres where Villanova has really succeeded and thrived. This will be the only one they get credit for thriving in a road atmosphere. Somehow winning in Milwaukee against Wisconsin is considered a neutral site. You still have to explain that one to me. But, NCAA Sports Insanity puts it perfectly. One of his comments on our live chat, Lindsey Hodge Brennan starting to get open looks after what a Caden Lewis ability to draw defense and earn their respect. And I thought that was the cadre that decided this game tonight. Villanova has 4 excellent players. The thing about Villanova is they haven't had many games where all 4 have been on. And I thought tonight, pretty much from the start, all 4 brought their A game, especially Matthew Hodge. Guys, that play where he got the ball up top, head fake to get the defender in the air, displaced on a dribble, and then put the 3 up in rhythm, that's a special move. And that's something we hadn't seen from Hodge so far in his red shirt freshman year. That was kind of the type of play that he was billed as being able to make. I was impressed by that. I thought his presence and his ability to kind of stretch and bring some of those Seton Hall bigs away from the basket seemed to me to have a pretty big impact on Seton Hall defensively. What did you guys feel about that?
Brian, I'll let you take the lead on that one.
Sorry, I was in producing. I'm trying to do all this, the comments and everything. You throw me off here. Go ahead, Tim. I'm sorry.
Brian, you're good. I just didn't want you to feel like you were being left out or anything. So
it's all right. I got a lot of moving parts back here.
All right. So yeah, Hodge and Brennan in particular, those second chance points, especially during that big run, were a killer for the Hall. And like Seton Hall is a really good offensive rebounding team. And when they've been at their best, it's when they got their second chance points. Just look at the game against Providence, their last time out, where Stephon Payne had a big night with 16 rebounds, and they got a lot of second chance points, which was what allowed them to come away with a big roadkill at the end. Now they're just now they got a taste of their own medicine tonight. And again, give credit where credit's due for Villanova. Hodge, Brennan, they did a great job of cleaning up the glass and not allowing Seton Hall to get the kind of stops that they desperately needed to stay in this ball game. That allowed Villanova to keep them at not just an arm's length, like multiple arm's length. And for them to win comfortably, you could attribute a lot of their success for why that happened to their ability to get those second chance points. And on top of that, holding Seton Hall to just one shot almost every time down the floor for a good solid 5 minutes.
Yeah, the funny thing about go ahead, Brian.
Well, I was going to say, the crazy thing is, Tim, I felt the same exact way. I went to go look at the stats, and Seton Hall had 16 offensive rebounds, and Villanova only had 8, but it seemed like all 8 of those rebounds, those offensive rebounds, they were able to create points. And I can't remember an offensive rebound for Seton Hall, and they had double the offensive rebounds. I just think it's guys like Tyler Perkins stepping up. He had 10 rebounds tonight, which is crazy to me. I know Payne had 10 rebounds, but you talked about his game against Providence, and obviously this is nowhere near that. And it just felt like I'm surprised looking at the stat sheet, 10 rebounds for Stephon Payne. Like I'm shocked by it. Like I don't know about you, Tim, but did you feel like he had 10 rebounds going into this? Yeah. The absolute no post presence. God's will obviously only played 4 minutes. Not having Hines is a big thing. But like, even though the rebound numbers are kind of close, I didn't feel like it was that close watching the game.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is, like, I just looked at the box score. Villanova 10 second chance points. Seton Hall had 9. Like, that doesn't sound right to me. Like, it seemed like Villanova had at least 3 putbacks immediately following an offensive rebound. I know Hodge had 1 or 2. I know Duke Brennan had at least 1. So it just blows my mind. It doesn't. A lot of this box score, it just doesn't look right with the second chance points and the offensive rebounds. Yeah, it was just a weird game. And obviously, Villanova, I think the 8-point win doesn't really show. It's not reflective of the overall performance that Villanova put on tonight. You know, they really put a clinic on, and this is the first time Seton Hall has actually looked bad this year. Even in some of the non-conference games that, you know, they ended up eking out where they started off poorly, they still played well enough to win those games. Tonight, that was their first bad game all season, which, considering how bad last season went, I guess that's the silver lining in that. But yeah, that's all I got for you.
Pirate, Brian, I think we've been doing Biggie's Beat together too long because I had the exact same thought at the same time as you. I agree with both of you guys. I do think it's twofold of why it felt like it was more tilted towards Villanova on the second chance points. The timing of the offensive rebounds from Villanova, I thought, were backbreaking. Plus, 2 of the 4 second chance buckets they were able to convert in game came during the 16-0 run, which felt critical. And again, felt like it was that costly to Seton Hall. And I think that had a little bit more to do with the feeling of the way it was tilted towards Villanova. And then the other thing, too, is, you know, they only get technically the 10-second chance points. They also got fouled on 2 other putbacks. So they aren't technically second chance points, but they're trips to the free throw line, or you're dealing with foul trouble if you're Seton Hall. Foul trouble, I was a recurring theme in the game because Clark goes out early with the fouls. The other thing that I'm curious what you guys think, Patrick, will go to you on this one. You know, Seton Hall goes to the full court pressure late, had some success turning Villanova over. Did they shy away from doing it early due to the Clark foul trouble and due to the fact also, you know, remember McRae picked up a couple early fouls as well. So did that kind of change the way Seton Hall wanted to play? Because Villanova did have some problems against that Seton Hall pressure, which is such an important part of what the Pirates do.
I don't think so, because I think, look, you know, for whatever it's worth, I think Villanova let up on the gas in the last 2 minutes of the game. And that's why Seton Hall, you know, made a 18-point game into an 8-point game. I think they were pressing, you know, they let Trey Parker do some pressing. You know, they let Taquan Simpkins do some pressing. You know, everyone on Seton Hall. In fact, I think one of the strategies Holloway was trying to use in the second half was he put Clark on the bench, even though he had 2 fouls, because he was trying to make some stuff happen on defense. And Lewis's height advantage was taking away whatever Clark was able to do in terms of speed. So he tried to throw Trey Parker at him. He tried to throw Simpkins at him. He tried to throw Fisher at him. And he didn't phase Fisher. And it only really had an impact when it was too late, you know, given the way, you know, given that it was only like in the last minute and a half when Seton Hall did almost all of their damage on the press.
Well, that's the thing. You know, it was a little sooner than that, though, Patrick, because, you know, there was a stretch there where Villanova turned the ball over 4 times in 5 minutes at that full court pressure right around the 8-minute mark. I think I actually texted you at one point during the game, Brian, where Willard did not call timeout. Villanova had back-to-back turnovers, and it was at that point, 55-41 game with 8 minutes to go. I was freaking out. Caden Lewis almost decided to call timeout on his own. I don't know if you guys saw that. He brought the two hands together and kind of looked towards the bench, and they were all shaking him off. And Kevin Willard wanted to, A, teach his team a lesson, let them play through some adversity, and B, I think that showed incredible faith in his team and understanding we still have a 14-point lead. If we turn it over one or two more times, we can learn from this. Let's see if we could play through it. They did. They ended up getting a layup inside. Lewis got himself into the paint. Stop me if you've heard that one before. Left it off for Hodge. Hodge finished near the rim. Got it back to 16. That pretty much ended the competitive phase of the game. But it is still something that I think Villanova is going to see that from more opponents moving forward. Not many teams can press the way Seton Hall can. They are very handsy, and if the officials are going to let you play a little bit, and those officials couldn't figure out whether they were going to let you play or not. I thought they were bad both ways. I didn't know what you guys thought. I know it's a hard job being an official, but I just thought that they never really figured out the way they wanted to officiate that game tonight.
Yeah, listen, for those of y'all that watch Pirate Vibes, y'all know that I am an official, so I can tell you straight up, yeah, it's tough to do, and I do agree with you. I think that crew had a really bad performance because they couldn't pick a lane. They didn't know if they wanted to call it tight or call it more freely. And I think John Gaffney in particular, from what I read, I think out of the three, he probably had the worst game out of them. And I'm not trying to hate on Brian O'Connell here, but Brian is probably out of the three considered the worst of those three. And even I thought he had a pretty good game tonight. John Gaffney, not so much. There was a lot of things that they were letting go, specifically the traveling. I will say they missed it in real time. They might not have, but I know they went to the monitor going into a TV timeout where they had a foul on Pierce. Yes. The one where, and it was the right call because of the fact that he fell directly on top of Tawan Simpkins, and that's going to be a foul no matter what. And those are hard things to call because in real time, you try to let a play get through a situation where they're rolling around going for a loose ball, but if one guy topples over another, you got to call that in real time, and that's what happened. But yeah, it was really frustrating how inconsistent they were on both ends of the floor, and for both teams. That's kind of par for the course, unfortunately, with the Big East. We've seen God knows how many games that, the referees have kind of gotten themselves in the middle of controversy with. Thankfully, this game did not necessitate it where it's close enough where they could play a factor. But yeah, when you don't allow a rhythm and a level of consistency with your calls, that could really affect the overall quality of the game. And I think, thankfully, it didn't affect it more than it could have. But it could have marred the overall quality of play quite a bit. But, give credit to Shaw and Kevin for keeping their cool all night long.
Yeah.
Hey, Tim, quick question, Tim, before we go on from that.
Yeah.
You and I, and I think Matt and Brian would agree, Clark earned those two fouls he drew in the first 2 minutes of the game. Those were no doubters. One was he was trying to make up for not boxing out in the rebound. And the second one was he was too aggressive on his closeout. And I think it was that first Lewis 3 that gave Villanova a 4-point play. Correct me if you think I'm wrong in that statement.
He earned them. He absolutely earned them. They should have been called. They weren't questionable calls, but the biggest thing is when you're watching it on TV, right? And the fact that the announcers say the referee's name. Matt, you're the pro here. Is that a little insight, inside baseball to the play-by-play guys that I don't know, the fact that the
that's
referee's
Curry.
name is actually announced on TV.
That's Curry in favor with the official, so they'll come over and tell you what's going on. That's pure. You're being nice to the official, and you almost notice they never say the name when there's any type of criticism, coming towards the officials, then it's always referred to in the officials or the referees or the zebras. Whenever anything, they're not giving roses that direction. The individual names are good call or there's Brian O'Connor taking control. That's when you go to the name. Yes, I've lived that very well. The announcers need the officials because when things are off the rails, if they don't communicate, you can't communicate to the crowd, and then you end up being the one that sounds stupid, even though it's not your fault. You don't know what's going on. They didn't tell you.
Yeah,
I thought the official. I thought the announcers. I thought pointed out when it was a little bit off and did a good job with that. I thought that there was no rhythm in that first half, and I just was ashamed because I agree with Patrick. I mean, you can't undercut, you can't invade the space of Lewis when he comes down. That's been a point of emphasis. I thought Askew's too fast that he picked up were completely earned. Did have a little bit of problem with the third. I thought that he tried to foul and missed. I think when you look back and watch that replay, he never actually technically made contact, which was a big call. You thought at the time. But you could also argue, kind of force Kevin Willard to let Caden Lewis play through. And one thing I want to talk about, I know I'm the only Villanova guy here amongst three Pirate Vibes guys, but I do want to at least mention the Caden Lewis experience for Villanova fans is fun in a multitude of ways. Obviously, he's enjoyable to watch, but he runs the gauntlet. I don't know if you guys noticed, the first 3 minutes of the game, he had 2 buckets and an assist that led to the first 6 points for Villanova. He also got yelled at 3 times by Kevin Willard. 2 bad defensive assignments and 1 pass that I still am not quite sure where he was trying to throw it. Willard coaches him really hard. I like the way Kevin Willard is working things through with the youngster Lewis, and you can tell that Lewis is responding to that coaching. There were a lot of people holding their collective breath when he pulled Lewis in the second half of that BYU game and didn't go back to him. Obviously, Caden's dad made a mention of it publicly, and people blew that out of proportion. But everything we know about the Lewis family, they like this type of coaching. When we asked him at media day what he thought about the way Kevin Willard coached, he said, I may not always like the psycho cursing, but I love being coached hard. I love the corrections. I know he wants us to get better. I like that about Kevin Willard, and I'm starting to figure out what brings upon the psycho cursing. So I'm going to be able to avoid that a little bit better as well, which kind of gave you an insight. They just seem to have a good rapport. And even when Lewis is going good, Willard will still put him in his place a little bit. And I feel like Caden Lewis might be the kind of kid that needs that little extra prodding because, as he's admitted, he'll make some plays sometimes where he sees it, he thinks there's the opportunity to make it, but the game dictates there's no need to try that gamble in that spot. And we have seen fewer of those type of examples from Lewis here these last few weeks. And I think that's the reason why you're seeing a lot better play here from Villanova, a lot more consistency to the way they are winning these games. It's not as up and down as some of the wins we saw early in non-conference play. I'm gonna draw a parallel, Matt, here, and Tim and Brian, if you want to correct me, to Miles Powell. Because, Miles Powell's not nearly as ballyhooed as Lewis is. But there were times when, Powell was a freshman and a sophomore, when, another coach would have benched a guy who took bad shots the way Powell did. But Willard knew to get the most out of Powell, he had to play him. So, there's a similar dynamic between the relationship between Willard and Powell and the relationship between Willard and Caden Lewis. And it'll be interesting to see how that develops as, his freshman season goes along. And then we'll see if Lewis is around for a second season, whether, I don't
Bite
think
your tongue, Patrick. Bite your tongue.
You've said it yourself, Matt, whether he does or, I haven't seen him in a draft conversation yet, but if he has a good, next couple of months, I think he's got the goods talent-wise, size-wise to make it on an NBA roster one of these days.
Oh, he's a pro at some point. He's got to develop the jumper, though. I mean, to play in the NBA, he's got to be a much more consistent shooter. I think he's a multi-year college player, unless he's also much improved from where he was at the beginning of the year. So who knows where he gets to by the end of the year. It's going to cost Villanova money next year to bring him back. There's no doubt about it. But they're budgeting accordingly. I think they're going to be okay. They've got plenty of funds in the system. There's a long way to go between now and then, though. And in the life of a freshman, there will be plenty of ups and downs between this point and the end of the year for Caden Lewis. But I do think you'd be hard pressed not to say we saw him take that next step tonight. And in terms of the big picture, that's a big win for Villanova. It's not a good loss for Seton Hall, but it's not the end of the world. It's only their second of the season. They will have some things that they've got to learn from that we're going to talk about how they move forward from this. But the big story coming out of this game to me, obviously it's a quad one win for Villanova, which they desperately needed. It's their first of the year after they had strung together all those quad four wins to begin the season. But it's a Caden Lewis's maturation. That to me is what most people will leave this game talking about, and deservedly so. I don't know what you guys think.
I mean, given the performance and, the fact that Kevin talked about him at length in the post-game interview you did with Fanta and Tariq, I mean, for him to, he's not known as a shooter, like you said, and, he took 2 3-point attempts and he sank them both. 6 of 11 from the floor, and he was just doing a little bit of everything with 5 rebounds, added a couple dimes, and 3 steals as well. This is a Seton Hall team. They don't really turn the ball over a lot. They committed 9 turnovers in this game, obviously. But I think another big takeaway is how well Villanova defended. I know that Seton Hall really had a terrible game offensively, but you got to give credit to Villanova's defense for making it that way. And I know Seton Hall missed a lot of gimmies, with second chance points, including a really, really tough Bud Clark missed layup in the final minute or so, where I'm just like, oh, come on. Like it's that kind of night, and like a summary of, and actually, no, that wasn't a second. That was off a perfectly executed inbound pass off the defender's back. And it goes right back to him, and he misses a bunny right at the rim for an easy layup. And I'm like, Jesus Christ. But the story should be Villanova winning this game and not Seton Hall losing this game. More than anything, they defended well. They got the big run that you needed a road game to silence the opposing crowd, bury your opponent and not give them any room for a potential comeback. And to think that Villanova won this game despite turning it over 18 times, they still won this game comfortably. So I think that should tell you a lot about how good Villanova's offense was without the turnovers in mind.
8 turnovers in the final 10 minutes of that game for Villanova. There will be, they were making jokes about it will be a long film session for Seton Hall, and there is a lot of things that Shaw will have to fix coming out of that. But for Villanova, there will be some uncomfortable conversations. The press break just didn't look right. I know it's a man-to-man press, so you're not necessarily as worried about, where you're cutting on the floor. There's still got to be some more spacing, and they just kept throwing the ball into the corner. I mean, how many times did they inbound the ball directly into a trap in the corner, and either saw Caden Lewis get tied up, and Caden Lewis try to spin his way out of it? Bryce Lindsey actually thought did the best job of working through it, kind of finding that sideline and spinning to space. But that is something that they will have to go back to the drawing board on. What Seton Hall will have to go back to the drawing board on, and the one area I thought the Pirates really didn't do a good job taking advantage of Villanova on. Kevin Willard did a great job mixing defenses. I thought this was Villanova's best perimeter defense of the season in terms of a whole game. They were better in the first half against Wisconsin, but then they disappeared for stretches in the second half. They were really in front of everybody tonight. The communication, the switching, the spacing, the help, everything was there for Villanova. It was a very seamless effort in that regard, but I thought some of that was thanks to Seton Hall. They didn't put a lot of pressure on Villanova and didn't make as much of an effort as I thought they would to get towards the rim, and they went away from it. I understand when Villanova's playing zone, you're going to have to try to get the ball to the high post, and at times I thought they were trying to force it to the high post, and it kind of took Seton Hall out of their rhythm. But against the man, that's where Villanova is most vulnerable, and for whatever reason, guys, the Pirates couldn't take advantage of it.
They looked tentative, Matt. I'll just say that. They looked a lot more tentative than they have at maybe any point. Maybe some of the USC game they were tentative. Maybe they're tentative in some stretches against some of the lower-level non-conference teams. But they looked tentative, and I'm surprised about that because, again, part of – there's there's an aggressiveness you can have on offense. You know, we know Holloway's teams are going to be uber aggressive on the defensive end, and even most of the night, to Seton Hall's credit, even if it didn't work out sometimes, they did bring the intensity defensively most of the night. Unfortunately, the offense, and I can't explain why. You know, it looked like, you know, the types of plays that, let's say, Staten McCray has been making most of the season, he didn't have it until the last 5-6 minutes of the game. You know, Clark did his best. You know, Clark, you know, he just couldn't find the basket. And then some of the other guys we've come to know and love, you know, Simpkins didn't really have his best game offensively. Payne, you know, some of those rebounds, offensive rebounds, you got to put that offensive rebound back up, because at worst, you're probably going to get fouled and go to the foul line. And at best, you fight through contact and you get that basket. And, you know, I don't know what, you know, hey, players are allowed to have an off night. And some of Seton Hall's better players, like Clark and Payne, just had off nights tonight. And hopefully they'll figure it out, you know, for their game next week up at Marquette.
Yeah,
I think that's the reason why we saw more Rivera than we typically have, because he was grabbing the offense rebounds and going back up. You talk about Patrick. You said Stephon Payne had 5 offensive rebounds. He only had 2 shots. There's no reason why your center, your only post presence, your only real post player on the roster outside of the 4 minutes with God's will, should he have 5 offensive rebounds and only 2 shots? Like that does not make sense for this. But my biggest thing is, man, they need to hit their shots. You can't shoot 23% from threes and be able and expect to win in the Big East. You just can't. Yeah, it's 3 of 13, 1 of 5 in the second half. Like we talked about this in the preseason. We got to see a shooter, and so far we have seen a shooter. Like Stan McCray, Simpkins will have nights. Mikey Williams will have nights. Not Mikey Williams. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to confuse him with the Memphis guy or wherever he is now. Mike Williams, the third. Like, they have all had their nights, and tonight they just collectively all had a bad night, and including when Bud Clark is not able to live in that mid-range. The offense just looks so stale, and I'll go back to Tim's comment, PTSD from last year. That's what it really felt like. But February 4th is circled on the calendar, and you got to get a get-back game, because these two teams will be – I think we all can agree that these two teams will be in that 3 to 5 range. I don't know, maybe 2 to 4.
After the game the other weekend, I'm not ready to write St. John's in pen anymore.
That's a different conversation. I kind of agree with you on that, but they're going to be battling for those tournament bids together. And you see all the bracketology, and a lot of it right now, I know it's still early, has Seton Hall in, and Villanova was the first 4 out or last 4 in and everything. And now I think it's going to be reversed a little bit. And we'll just hopefully we both can survive, and we both beat Georgetown. We both beat like all those teams at the bottom of the conference. Like, take care of the Xaviers. See, Matt, I can pronounce it correctly. Take care of the Xaviers and then our games. We get the get back game, and we're both in the tournament. Like that. That's the best case scenario for both.
So one last thing I'll add. We talk about how good Seton Hall's defense is, but if there's any critique I had, there were multiple points where they just got lost on switches and on their defensive assignments. That there were multiple times where, I think one instance in the first half, I think it was Duke Brennan had a wide open lane to the bucket because the defensive assignment was missed. And Staten McCray had to sprint over from the left side of the court to the right side to prevent Brennan from getting an easy dunk. And you could see he was arguing intensely with, I believe it was Rivera and or Simpkins about missing that defensive assignment. And and it happened again like several times in the second half. And like that is so uncharacteristic for this Seton Hall team. So I just thought I'd point that out, because everyone talks about how good of a defensive team Seton Hall is. And they were doing some very un-Seton Hall things tonight. And I guarantee you Shaw's going to light them up in the film session, coming out of when they come back from their Christmas break.
I think some of the credit has to go to Villanova for that, though. The spacing really did make defending Villanova tonight difficult. And this is what I've been talking about on our Holy Nova show. This was the good Villanova tonight. Their offense, when they play like this, I know the schedule has been very lacking in terms of high-level competition in the non-conference portion of it. But when they spread the floor and move without the basketball because of their guards, specifically Lindsay and Lewis's ability to get in the paint whenever they want off the bounce, and then Brannon's ability to attack the glass at will, and Hodges stretch the floor, can knock down that three, but can also go to the rim and get involved on second chance opportunities, they become a very difficult team to defend. And now suddenly you're kind of second guessing your rotations a little bit. And I thought that's what we saw from Seton Hall a couple times, where they got a tad bit, I don't know if I want to say confused, or if they kind of were a little lost in the scattering report. Or am I supposed to cheat on this guy or not cheat on this guy? And when you hesitate on Villanova, all they need is a little bit of space. Suddenly they've broken down your entire defense. The problem for Villanova is they have stretches where they stop doing that. Second half against Wisconsin, a prime example. Stretches against the Pittsburgh game, another example. At no point against Michigan did they do it. First half against BYU. So hopefully this is a sign of a team growing up, and we're going to see a little bit more consistency in terms of the movement, because I think these guys are starting to figure out, hey, when we play like this, we're really good. When we don't, it's a much different story. And when you have a freshman point guard, you're going to have some ups and downs. And that's kind of what we have seen from Villanova this year. But it's starting to get more and more consistent. And you guys talked about the perception. I think the perception of Villanova has a really good chance of changing here now all of a sudden, because if you look at the body of work, they are a little bit of a victim of circumstance. They play the 3 Big 5 games. I know they're not good competition, but they're different types of games. Those are rivalry games that they get the 3 wins in them. They play Pittsburgh. They play Duquesne. They are quad 4 wins right now. I don't think they're going to long-term be quad 4 wins. I think Duquesne and Pittsburgh, as they get into conference, will slide at least into Q3, probably Q2 by the time everything is said and done. And then Wisconsin hopefully stays Q1. That's going to vacillate all year. This is going to be a Q1 win. Now suddenly you look at this team, they got blown out by Michigan. Everybody gets blown out by Michigan. They were right there with a top 10 BYU team, and then they've pretty much won every other game going away outside of the Wisconsin game that they found a way to win in a road atmosphere. That's not I think it's amazing how fast you can flip a narrative, which is what Villanova's kind of done here in this last week. From they've played absolutely no one to, wow, Villanova's pretty good, and they're not being challenged. I know they haven't played the best competition, but they also haven't really been challenged in any of these games against bad competition. And then they're beating pretty good teams when they get the chance.
The funny thing is, I could make the argument that a very similar narrative was being made about Seton Hall when they started 5-0 at 5-0 this season. Then they go to Maui.
Changed it. Yeah, Maui changed
exactly.
That.
And I know that's different because it's neutral court, and it was early in the season. NC State was ranked. Not anymore. They're not. And, they've kind of struggled over the last month or so. Who knows? Maybe they'll get back to being one of the upper echelon teams in the ACC like they were expected to. But, yeah, I think the similar argument that you made for Villanova, Seton Hall was in a very similar situation just a month ago. So, with Villanova, you can't really fault them for losing to a very good BYU team in their first game of the season in Vegas. And then, of course, like you said, everybody gets blown out by Michigan, even some of the best in the country, like Gonzaga, as we saw out in the Players Era Festival, or AKA the Scrooge McDuck Invitational. So Villanova, I think tonight they really proved themselves, and I don't blame your fan base for saying Villanova basketball is back, because it really felt like they were. And I think the memory of Kyle Neptune, I think, has quickly faded away in just like a month and a half of Kevin Willard. And to think that it took him 6 years to get Seton Hall back to prominence. He got Maryland back to the tournament in year 1. The guy knows what he's doing. And don't forget, he turned a really bad Iona team into a solid team in the MAAC in his first year.
Careful, don't say that. Brian gets mad when you say that. He wants to put respect on Iona's name.
I mean, listen, no, don't hate on Iona, man. I mean,
Iona's a good program. They're a good program.
He gets mad at me when I point that out as a tip in or a feather in Willard's cap. But look, I couldn't agree with you more, Tim. I said it. I texted Brian during the game when he didn't call that timeout, and I'm freaking out. And it seemed like the walls were caving in a little bit. You guys mentioned PTSD. When Willard didn't call that timeout and it worked out for Villanova, it was just nice to be rooting for a team with a coach who had his finger on the pulse of his team. And it was looking big picture, and it was playing a little chess, not exclusively checkers, reacting to every single moment. And I think that's a good thing. Now, it's got to work. And as I said, faith can be fleeting when they couldn't get the ball in bounds a couple times there in that second half. That was a little nerve-wracking. And it's when you say Villanova's back, look, they were a perennial Final Four contender. They're nowhere near that. They're just trying to get to the NCAA tournament this year. Their ceiling is probably, if everything goes well, 6-7 seeds. That's fine, though, in year one of the Willard era. That would be absolutely beautiful for Villanova fans, and they feel like they're trending potentially in that direction. That's a big deal. I want to say one thing real quick, because Patrick Madden, he's not in the Blair Witch Project, folks. He actually had boots on the ground tonight. The reason why he's gone dark in the picture, he is navigating his way, I'm sure, down the New Jersey Turnpike. Hopefully we're not breaking any laws here. You're hands-free, right, Patrick?
Not yet. Not yet, Matt. B, I think a good lawyer if I get in trouble, but we'll two of them actually. One is the one you're married to, and the other is your co-host. So, I think I'm in good shape if I get in trouble. I'm going to check out actually because I'm going to be pulling in the home. But I guess my final thought is, kudos to Kevin Willard. He proved that he had a game plan. He stuck with it. Kudos to Caden Lewis, and hopefully Seton Hall shakes this one off, brings the effort against Marquette next week. And then when we get back to the rematch on February 4th, we'll be in a situation where these teams are fighting for a high spot in the Big East. Great job tonight, gentlemen. Great night by Brian by putting this all together. Matt doing his usual thing, and Tim always bringing great insights about everything. So have a happy holidays, gentlemen.
Happy holidays, Patrick.
Happy holidays, Pat.
We're going to stick around a little bit longer. We still got a few views. Yeah, kudos to Pat. You're right, Tim.
Yeah. I mean, trust me, I've gone to Seton Hall for 4 years. Listen, I'm from upstate New York, and I'll tell you right now, it takes twice the time, like, for example, to go 10 miles where I live. It takes about like 15 minutes. It takes double the time at least down in New Jersey. So to brave a drive from downtown Newark back to where he's from, more in central Jersey, kudos to Pat. I mean, he deserves to take a breather, especially coming all the way back from Florida like he did. Take a breather, man, and just enjoy the Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, man. So it was good hearing from him. But less chaos with three people, and I feel like you're not as outnumbered anymore, Matt.
You know what? Maybe not by math, but in spirit, I know you guys can bring the juice against me. Let's talk about your team, though, for a second. A guy who I was really interested to see how he would translate to the Big League East level and has done a really good job so far this year was Simpkins. Saw him at Elon do a lot of work at the CAA, and there's no doubt that he is electric. I was just worried that frenetic pace, how it would come over to Shaw's system, which, it kind of is a little bit different looking. His athleticism translate, there's no doubt about it. Tonight, I thought he was the one Pirate that got to the rim. He just couldn't finish. Was that an anomaly, did you feel like, or was it something that Villanova did that gave him problems near the rim?
But by far, I would say this is one of his worst games the entire year. He typically has been able to finish, and he can shoot. I think he's our highest three-point shooting, and he went 0 for 3 tonight. I just think the whole team stunk at shooting on offense. Like and I think it's partly because Nova is better on defense. I think the zone. I think we're going to see a lot more zone because, like Pat was talking before we went on air, the other team that did really well in the zone was USC against us. So those are the best two zone defenses we've seen all year, and they're both our losses. So I think you're going to see a lot more zone, and I think the offense still is going to run obviously through Bud Clark and Trey Parker backing them up. But if they can't shoot the ball from 3, like the offense is going to feel like last year. It's as simple as that. Like your guys that have the ball in their hand, the defense has to respect them as soon as they cross half court. And if they don't, you're going to struggle in big time college basketball. So but to go back to Simpkins, I think he'll rebound against Marquette and Creighton, and you just saw his worst game.
So what really worries me now is that when it comes to Big East play, these teams know each other so well. And if you remember 3 years ago when UConn looked like an absolute monster, the best team in the country by far and away, once they lost to Xavier because, Sean Miller had done his homework, the rest of the conference started doing their homework, and those teams figured UConn out, and they went on a major slide in the month of January where they really came back down to earth and they didn't look indestructible. If anything, they were coming apart, but as you know, they figured it out, adjusted to whatever, and reinvented their strategy and themselves. And as you know, they went on to get back to that dominant form and went on to win the Natty. What concerns me, and the reason why I bring that up, is because now there's the rest of the coaches in the conference. They're probably looking at this tape and thinking, so this is the blueprint for how we beat and take Seton Hall down and really disrupt them. And I think you could see that. But with Marquette coming up, man, Marquette needs a win like they need air to breathe. So they're going to come out hungry for this game a week from today out in Milwaukee. So, yes, I am a little worried that, coaches like Shaka Smart and Greg McDermott and so on and so forth, they're going to watch tonight's game and see that Kevin Willard had the blueprint for how to beat Seton Hall, but it probably helps that, Shaw was under Kevin Willard's tutelage for a decade and a half between Iona and Seton Hall. So, I mean, we'll see what happens, but that's my biggest fear coming out of tonight.
Real quick, you guys. So Jaden Daly, Daily Dose of Hoops. Obviously, he was in the presser.
Such a good job.
Such a good job. Willard's. What's that?
He does such a good job. I mean, you want to talk about his source. That guy just gives us the press conference in real time.
He said Willard was saying our game plan was to make Bud a score. And I think that's until he can prove it night in, night out that he can score multiple ways, not just get into the rim. I think that's the blueprint to give the biggest struggle to the Pirates. So I'm going to keep reading these quotes while you guys are talking and see if there's any good ones.
One other thing, though, that's important to remember, guys, I hear you, and I do think you will see more zone. Not everybody plays zone as part of their regular package. Villanova is the exception to the rule rather than the norm. So you can try zone. You will see teams that will try it, but you'll also see coaches that they just don't believe in zone. They are too worried about whether their team will be able to rebound out of a zone. So even if they think they can slow you down by playing a zone defense, they won't go to it because there are too many other factors that they feel like they can't control that could come back and hurt their team. So they want to stay in their regular system. We hear that from teams all the time. So if you're going to have a weakness, then zone might be the best weakness to have because not everybody's going to be willing to play you in it. And even if they do, not everybody's going to be very good at it. And if you face a bad zone, even if you're not great against it, you should be able to beat a bad zone. There are just too many weak points to it. Plus, the more you see it, the more comfortable, more familiar you'll get. And I don't think that they're not a great three-point shooting team. We always knew that was going to be their Achilles heel. They had been better than maybe we anticipated coming into the year. They're not Georgetown, right? I mean, they're a much better shooting team than the Hoyas, but that's going to be their weak point. Villanova is a streak shooting three-point team. Unfortunately, for Seton Hall, they ran into a night where Villanova was pretty good from three and got good looks off ball movement and knocked them down consequently. But I just don't think you're going to see night in, night out in the Big East zone defense. I think you'll see it in spots from certain teams, but I still think you're going to be able to get to the lane and do that drive. And then also you're going to play more up-tempo than you did tonight. Part of the reason why I thought you didn't press early in the game, quite frankly, either, you didn't make shots. That's the other thing. You can't set up press if you're not converting at the basket. You couldn't do it early in the second half because you didn't score for 17 minutes of real time. Like that's hard to overcome. You got to be able to put it in the basket a little bit to have everything else set up. And this was as inconsistent as Seton Hall is capable of being offensively. This game felt more like an anomaly in terms of how bad they were in stretches on the offensive end.
God, I hope so. And this is probably the PTSD in me talking. I want to believe you. I really hope that it is an anomaly. But we saw later in the game what happened when Seton Hall actually attacked the rim rather than just being lackadaisical and not really doing anything until 10 seconds and under on the shot clock. Once they actually took the ball to the hoop and they put it in, I'm literally just sitting on my couch. Ball goes in when they go to the hoop, and I'm like, you see what happens when you actually attack the rim? They're higher percentage shots. They're more likely to go in. Simple mathematics. So I'm hoping that maybe they'll take this lesson and not be so tentative. Be aggressive. Like in the Big East, you can't afford to be tentative like Pat was talking about, before he hopped off. So this is only game number 2 of a 20-game Big East schedule. A lot of time to correct this. And I mean, we still got to get into the calendar year of 2026. So I expect Shaheen Holloway and his guys to try to right most of, if not all of the wrongs from this game tonight and take it forward, because they got to go up against a hungry Marquette team Tuesday night in Milwaukee next week. And then Creighton right now does not look like the team we saw out of conference.
They look like Creighton.
It blows my mind that Seton Hall beat that Kansas State team in Manhattan relatively easily. And then K-State went into Omaha and trounced them. And here they are, their first 2 Big East games of the year against Xavier Marquette. They win by a combined 62 points. They are on fire. And most likely that, they're still going to be doing well by the time they come to the Rock on January 4th.
You guys, real quick, just to let you know, please go check out Daily Dose of Hoops, because Willard talks about, he curses, he talks about recruiting a 47-year-old Chinese pro. He pokes fun at Adam Zagoria's photos of the Hudson River. Willard's been waiting for this moment to give Jersey and their media a tough time. So please go check it out, because I'm reading this. No one listens to you guys. Your Twitter is horrible, going after Adam Zagoria. So Willard was in prime mode tonight. So
guys, listen, Willard's getting more comfortable, and that's the other thing that's making me feel good about him as a Villanova guy, a Villanova fan. Let's be honest here, he's loosening up, and you guys told me when Willard feels good about his team, that's when he starts to get fun to follow, because that's when he starts to get a little chatty and a little mouthy, and we're starting to see that in his last press conference after the win against Pittsburgh. 2 press conferences ago, they were asking him about did Pittsburgh have an influence on him, and he talked about how obviously played for his dad, but he also got the chance to play or to meet his wife while he was there. And he found a woman that was able to put up with him for a quarter century. And, a lot of people will tell you that's hard to do. And then he kind of looked around. And he said, but it's unfair. I'm actually a good guy. I think a lot of people, Maryland might not tell you so, but I think if you had a beer with me, I think you'd like it a lot. And then he offered a couple of media members to get a beer. I don't think that he actually went followed through with that offer and got a beer with any of them, but he's relaxing a little bit. And I think that's a sign that his team's starting to get it. And they're not quite as lost in the weeds as they were early in the year, when he was making comments that sounded more like we're an unmitigated disaster on a loop over and over again.
I'll quote Willard here tonight. We're trending in the right direction. I like the fact that no one's really talking about us. So I think he has real, obviously he knows what's going on with Villanova, and they're trending in the right direction, and everyone will be talking about him, right? Yep. You just knocked off the 27th, I think, in the AP poll. I think that's where we are right now. And
if you want to keep it a secret, though, this was a good time. It's 2 days before Christmas. We'll be talking about Christmas Eve in Santa tomorrow. We want, this will be forgotten real quick, and then DePaul coming up after the holiday. I think Villanova will be able to just cruise under the radar a little more.
Which is how he likes it. The funny thing is with Willard, I'm shocked that he offered those guys to get a beer with him, considering he is openly admitted he's a wine guy. And also the fact that he loves himself some nachos. listen, he was the head man when I was at Seton Hall. I know he's at Nova now, but I will forever be a Kevin Willard stan just because of he's got such a dry sense of humor, and he executes it flawlessly. Especially with Zagoria. I will never forget Big East Media Day virtually 5 years ago, and since you mentioned Zagoria, Zagoria asked him a question, and Willard, I kid you not, is like, Zags, you look like you just rolled out of bed. Like, I mean, so when I saw him at Big East Media Day, and I probably told you about this, Matt, in real time.
I was standing right there. He recognized you.
I was like, I miss this man so much. Like, him just being in the Big East just felt so right, and it definitely feels even more so right after tonight. And for him to get Villanova back to this kind of status where they look legit, and hopefully they'll look more legit consistently compared to, and I hate to go back to Kyle Neptune, like there are some stretches where they look like the force that Jay Wright turned him into, and then there are other times where like they lost to DePaul in Chicago, for example.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't remember many of those stretches, if we're being honest. I remember they beat UConn without their best player, and they beat St. John's team that had foul trouble all game long. I remember that. I don't remember any of those looking like Jay Wright days.
Yeah, I mean,
maybe I got that PTSD that you keep talking about too.
Yeah, I mean, I got a photographic memory, so it shocks me that I remember some of those high quality wins, but also those really bad losses that Villanova had under the previous head man. Yeah. So yeah, I think that I think he can lead this team and have more consistency. I mean, we saw what he did in his 3 years at Maryland, getting it back to a Sweet 16. So yeah, I think the big point about Kevin Willard, and another thing that blows my mind that he was talking about with Fanta and Tariq Turner, like he's got a freshman in college and a high school senior now. I'm like, dude, stop making me feel old, because when I was a student, like they were still like little kids, and now one's in college and the other one will be going to college soon. I'm like, oh man. So I think that's the perfect time for me to go. Like if you excuse me, gentlemen, I'm gonna go lay down in bed and cry and realize how old I am, even though I'm not even 30 yet.
All right, Tim. Good. Merry Christmas to you. Happy Festivus.
Real quick, your guess on Kevin Willard's favorite Christmas movie. He did talk about this.
He said Die Hard.
Oh, all right.
I mean, to each their own, I guess. I mean, it's not a traditional Christmas movie, but it's technically
it's a Christmas movie. We argued about this on Big East Beat, so it's a Christmas movie.
Fair enough. I'll give you that, Kevin. All right, see you guys later. Merry Christmas, y'all.
Merry Christmas.
All right, Brian, here's what I want to get out of on this. I want you to tell me, as it is 2 days from Christmas, you've aired your grievances about tonight's performance in honor of Festivus. As you come out of this loss, if you could have anything with this team for Christmas, what do you want for Seton Hall that help this team? That's realistic. I'm not talking a genie in a bottle type of a situation, but that you could see this team improve or take the next step on. What would be the Christmas present for this team that gets it to the level that you want to see it get to?
As much as I hated playing against them tonight, but someone like Bryce Lindsey that could just knock down the shots, and you got to cover them. But they got to figure out how to beat a zone defense. I really do believe. I know you said like a lot of the Big East teams aren't going to play zone defense, but Bud Clark's history, Merrimack, is that he can't shoot. He's undersized and can't shoot. So you give some length against him, and you play zone, and he's going to struggle the entire time. So that they got to figure out how to play zone defense. But I know I text you in the middle of the game. The defense has to create turnovers and score. Like they can't create 18 turnovers and only get 23 points off of that. They need 1.5 points off of turnovers. Too bad Tim left, but like a couple games ago against Kent State, they had 2 points per turnover. So basically they were scoring every single time that they created a turnover. They need to be at that 1.5 points. And when you only have 23 points on 18 turnovers, you're not going to win when you can't shoot the ball. Like you've got to be really good at something, and you can't just be very average on a lot of things, and if not poor in shooting. I would say, and we talked about this before the season. they do not have a shooter. Like, yes, I know Mike Williams, like everyone thought he was a shooter in Maui when he had those couple threes against NC State right off the bat and everything. He's not a shooter. Bud Clark's not a shooter. Simpkins can be a shooter, but he's your seventh man right now. He's not.
And he's not a spot up shooter. He's
not. Like, even on the Elon team you talked about, he was their fourth leading scorer, but he had the most double digit point games on the team. It's because he's going to get you the 10, 12 points, and it's not going to be. It'll be a three, and right now he's our best 3-point shooter. So they've got to develop a shot, and I don't know if obviously Santa's not going to be able to deliver that in either a shot this year. So they got to figure out how to beat his own defense without a shooter.
Well, it's kind of funny
for Villanova.
For Villanova, it's I would like this team to watch the film of tonight's game offensively, to watch the film of the first half and the overtime against Wisconsin, and realize just how effective they can be offensively when they keep moving. We saw it in little spurts tonight. You even alluded to it a couple times via text. They get stagnant, man, and it just you can't figure it out because when they're moving, it's pretty to watch. Even when the ball doesn't go in, you always feel like there's an opportunity for an offensive rebound. The long rebounds don't tend to lead to leakouts because you got a defense scrambling and it's just trying to secure a board. So it takes away some of the transition game. And most importantly, it opens up driving lanes and you have two guys that can take full advantage of that. And then you add to the fact Duke Brennan's ability to slip and get to the rim and his physicality in there. Now he's got to become a better free throw shooter, but his physicality in there and his ability to finish from different angles. Limited range, but who cares when you just seemingly find a way to will yourself to get the ball 3 feet and in within the rim. And just it is a good offense when there's movement. This team is susceptible to stagnation. And if they could just learn, you're never going to be perfect. There are going to be moments where you get stuck a little, but you got to be more consistent with moving that ball. And I think that a lot of the turnovers that you're seeing kind of allude to, they turned it over against the press, but a lot of time it's shot clock winding down. They haven't moved all possession long, and now you kind of look up at the clock. You're in press mode, and that's when a Caden Lewis tries to do something where the angle isn't there, or Tyler Perkins trying to drive through two guys, or offensive fouls. So when they just keep moving, they're fine. They have a chance actually to be a really good offensive team, even when the 3-point shot doesn't go. And then when it does go, they look special. So hopefully they see these last two games. They did it for a half and an overtime against Wisconsin. They did it most of the night tonight. If they can keep that going, this could be a really fun next couple of months for Kevin Willard and company.
Yeah, well, you know my personal feelings about Villanova. I think
you were higher on them coming in.
Yeah, we're higher. I'll say it again because I guess this is a Big East beat show now. By the way, I didn't. Pat was talking and everything. I appreciate the 6-7. We mentioned 6-7 all the time, and you said 6-7 earlier on, and I was like, man, this is like Pirate Vibes. But I think you guys will continue to get better. I think there's opportunity in this Big East where you're going to start to get wins. I think you got to beat St. John's at least once, and of course you're going to pick up a loss here or there. It just can't be a bad loss. I think this is a tournament team. I really do. I've said it since the beginning of the year, so I'm going to continue to roll with it. But I think we've joined you guys at least on the bubble, and that's what I'm looking forward to. The battle, especially me doing a show with you every week. We get to battle all year. Who's positioning better going into, but right now you got the leg up
on both on the men's and women's front, by the way, too. I might note.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about women. Like I'd like after Friday, I was like, I'm not talking women's basketball with Matt Janus anymore because it's personal. I think it's personal. Denise pretty close. Like Vizella is my favorite guy. It's personal. It's a little bit more. This is more of a fandom kind of thing. Well, like. It's relationships that we're both trying to build on.
Now. You get stakes. Tony's won you over on the women's side.
Yeah, he has 100% won me over. Like I drove 4.5 hours to watch Seton Hall women's basketball. So, but you guys have the leg up going in 2026. February 4th is circled on the calendar. This is one of the thing that I'm most excited about tonight, even though they lost, is that at the beginning of the year when the schedule came out, we were only looking towards a couple games. Maui, Villanova, beating UConn at home, and that's it. And hopefully we improve over 7 wins. Well, we've already done that, and now I'm excited to go to Milwaukee. Right, I'm excited. Creighton's on the schedule coming up soon. Like there's an anticipation here for this team going forward. So I'm all right with this loss. It looks better, especially the ones that like the only ones that are going to look at the scoreboard. Right, this game was way worse than the 8-point difference.
It was good for your analytics.
This is not a bad loss analytically now compared to if the game stopped with 7 minutes ago. So
yeah, and Bryce Lindsey didn't try to make any late layups and nearly start a fight. They tried to help the net. I don't know if you saw Kevin Willard say that before the game yesterday, before Villanova went up to Jersey. He said, we've been talking about the net. And when I asked Bryce Lindsey afterwards, why'd you shoot that layup at the end of the Wisconsin game? He said, hey, I just wanted to make sure we were doing everything we could to make our net as good as possible. So, hey, he's playing chess. Everybody else is playing checkers.
By the way, Bryce Lindsey is the first name on the list of villains at the Rock for this year, because me and Patrick have already started talking about it. But Bryce Lindsey's the first name. I just didn't like him. I really, he's a great shooter. I respect him and everything. I can't lose. I can't hate. Like, you can't. If you watch that game and you come away saying I can't stand a Caden Lewis, then you just don't like the game of basketball. Bryce Lindsey's a little, and Hodge and Duke, like you can, and Perkins, you can dislike all those guys, but a Caden Lewis you cannot. Just don't touch him. He's freshman of the year, especially now that whatever's going on with Hines. I know we didn't really touch on it. No one knows. I guess the quote of the night is no life, no energy on defense. Shaw, when he said that in the TV timeout, and they caught that on the hot mic. I think that
he also told somebody to be quiet.
Yeah, I think it was Stephon Payne, who was having a terrible night. So like that's basically, that sums up the entire night outside of the missed layup by Bud Clark with a minute to go. Like, that was atrocious. And hopefully they're able to rebound and it doesn't snowball because this is the worst this is the worst game they've played all year. So I'm excited to see how they go about business going forward. And I know you got a little bit of break here, but see how they rebound, because every Seton Hall fan, doesn't matter how much you love this team, knew that this team was not going to go 29-1. Like, let's be real. There was going to be a time when they faced the adversity, and this is it. This is it. And it's Willard's return. So it's the Festivus, right?
Yeah, you got a lot of grievances to air tonight, but not a lot of grievances big picture. For Villanova, they were just hoping to play meaningful games in February to try to sneak back to March. Obviously, the expectations have ratcheted up higher now, but get to the tournament. No matter how this all unfolds, if you make the tournament at the end of the year, it's a successful year one for Kevin Willard, and everything else is gravy. But when you watch performances like tonight and that overtime against Wisconsin, hey, gravy's pretty good. I'll take some more gravy on my plate. We can run Thanksgiving back again if that's the kind of gravy it's going to be. I'm all good with it. This was a very satisfying night. I feel bad for Seton Hall fans because I know this was a meaningful night for them. Kudos, by the way, to Peacock. I don't know if you were in there early, but they put 5 minutes before the broadcast went live. They did
that on NBC Sports Network as well. Yeah, I don't know if you have that.
No, I was on Peacock. I didn't even know that was a thing.
So all the Peacock games have now been moved to NBC Sports Network. So all the national Peacock games, they have moved to actual. You can get on your cable provider. You don't have to actually have.
My wife, as a lawyer, to calm her nerves, likes reality television. So we have Peacock. So I just watch it on that. But either way, kudos to them for. She's not gonna like that I just said that. Kudos to them.
If she's an hour and 15 minutes in on a reaction show to Seton Hall Nova on December 23rd, then man, believe me, you already made it. All right, like.
Kudos to Peacock, though, for putting it on 5 minutes in advance, getting it to see the ovation for Willard when he was introduced. I just thought that was cool. I mean, I just thought we were going to miss that, or we were going to see it canned in production. They showed it live, they showed it raw, and kudos to the Seton Hall fans. I thought they handled it perfectly.
Yeah, I think. Well, they gave him a video tribute. I think that lessened the blow a little bit. He is on the Mount Rushmore of Seton Hall coaches with Raftery and don't tell Patrick, but PJ is on there too.
Pat, unlike
we can
PK.
argue about 4. It's probably Shaw, to be honest with you. But I just
You don't like George Blaney? You're not putting George Blaney on there?
George Blaney and Louis Orr and Bobby Gonzalez probably not. But that's the reason why Willard is, right? Because Willard followed all those guys and saved Seton Hall from its lowest time. It was criminal. Like, let's be real. Like, it was criminal at that point with Bobby Gonzalez. So for them to Willard's important. You can't tell the story of Seton Hall basketball history without including Kevin Willard for a good chunk of it. So I always told you I loved him. I went on your show in the preseason talking about how much I love him. The chiropractor, he's always making adjustments. He's wise. I mean, he's witty. I think he's what college basketball needs, a personality like that. I think college basketball is so successful when their coaches are able to be their personas and personalities and the live action heroes. So I'm all about Kevin Willard.
Yeah, in the interest of fair and full exposure, yes, Maryland fans might not feel the same way, but we're not Maryland fans. A Villanova fan and a Seton Hall fan saying kudos to Kevin Willard. Kudos to all of our viewers today as well. Then the numbers went up and down, but we actually did pretty well over the course of the night. We're going to do more of these energy exchange programs. It's going to be a fun season, Brian. And I know we're going to do this again after the game at the Finn, right?
Yeah, February 4th. Circle your calendar. That might be the next one, honestly, for us. I would like to get one with Casey because Casey does live all the time. So I don't know if he really would do a post game live, but against Creighton next week. So we'll see. Maybe I'll do more of these lives.
Well, and we'll be back next week with Big East Beat, right?
Oh yeah, I'm ready to go. I hope you enjoy your Christmas. Merry Christmas. I hope you enjoy your cold weather. I think it's supposed to be 72 degrees here tomorrow down here in South Georgia.
We're getting a snowstorm the day after Christmas. So, yeah, it's a little different up here.
Yeah. So you enjoy it. Maybe I'll go to the beach, take a picture, and send it to you in my Seton Hall trunks. I don't have those.
I hope not. And on that note, happy Festivus, everybody. Hope you aired your grievances for the Seton Hall fans. Merry Christmas, Nova Nation. It was an early present. Caden Lewis has taken the next step. We appreciate you being with us all the way. That'll do it for this Energy Exchange, a live edition of the Big East Energy Network. If you haven't already, obviously, please subscribe to the network. And make sure you check in. We're here every Tuesday and Thursday. We'll be back after the holiday, and Big East Beat on Wednesdays as well, where we talk about the entire league. Thanks so much, everybody, for Patrick Madden and Tim Best, plus Bryan Webster. I'm Matt Janus. Have a great night. Merry Christmas to all, and to all, a good night.